The following show is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Second.
We are live. Coffee with the Johns, April 2nd, 2021. Welcome to the show.
Woo-hoo.
Hope you guys are ready to get some interesting news headlines, some great knowledge. We have a lot of really good headlines to cover, some good real estate stuff to go over. So hope you guys are ready. Put in the chat, how are you doing this morning? What are you drinking? What are you joining us? Where are you joining us from? All of that we like to know. What is it that you do in real estate? We definitely love to know that. We like to see the kind of investing that everybody does and everybody handles. So with that being said, I'm your host, John BRRRR, and with me as always is our co-host, Mr. John Barr.
The better looking. You need to get some Bruce Buffer classes. We are live. Here we go. Our tale of the take. Run down the list. Topics.
Okay, I'll just add that to my rolling to-do list.
Yeah.
Eventually, it'll be more fun for you guys, okay?
John's gonna have a little fun with his life.
Yeah, we got what do we got coming up? So we have Ray Dalio, kind of a big deal in the investment world. He owns, or used to own, I don't know if it's still one of the biggest hedge funds in the world.
Yeah, I don't know
Bridgewater's huge economist, everything. And he's predicting a very big stock bubble that is about to pop. So he's saying this is coming down the line. He's talking about magnitude levels of 2000 and 1929 Great Depression level kind of pop. So
or halfway to the
halfway to the magnitude.
halfway. Not there. Getting there.
Yeah. So we'll cover that. We're going to cover Biden released part of the new infrastructure plan. So we're going to cover how, what effects could that have on the real estate market and investing. Amazon thinking about unionizing. So that's interesting. And
Amazon's not thinking about it. Their employees are wanting to do it.
well, I mean, we'll
difference.
see what's going to happen with all that, as well as we have some local real estate news for San Antonio and Texas, and just a little bit of heads up with all the stuff that's going on. I talked to a lot of real estate investors and people that are looking to get into real estate, and they're really struggling with education, with figuring out what's the right things to be doing, the right strategies, all of this. So I created a Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. You can find it. It's called Real Estate Investing the Right Way. And you have to answer the questions. If you don't answer the questions, you're not going to get approved. So, because the point of the group is not for you to pitch your deals, not for you to pitch your business. The whole point of the group is purely for education. So there's already people on there that have decades of experience. They're going to be sharing their knowledge, as well as a bunch of new investors, people looking to get into investing, asking questions, connecting, trying to figure things out. So that's the purpose of the group. So if you're interested in actually getting some real knowledge, no sales pitch, no nothing, real knowledge, then you want to check out that group. It's Real Estate Investing the Right Way. It's on Facebook. And we also opened up a private group for people that text this number, 210-794-9898. And it's our texting community. So in that group, we're actually going to be sharing the things that we're learning and things that's working for us in the moment, live, in real time. So we share all this stuff anyway, but sometimes it takes a few weeks before I can put a podcast episode together or something of that magnitude so I can share it. This time, we're going to be doing it live. We're going to be doing it in the moment. So, but only for the text community. So make sure you text that number and you'll be a part of it. And every time that we are figuring something new out, we have some cool hack or some cool tools that we're using, you are going to be the first to know. So with that being said, let's kind of get this ball rolling. The first thing I wanted to cover is we're on TikTok. So if you have a TikTok, check us out, an Investor's Journey. And we've been we put a lot of these things, and I know it's not gonna be, the fun TikTok you guys like. We're not. John is not twerking that much on there,
Not
but
even on there.
no, I made sure to put a picture of you at some point. But we did a post, and it kind of went viral, and viral in our terms. Okay, it got like, I don't know, 50,000 views and a ton of comments and stuff. But what I found interesting, the post was when last week's Coffee with the Johns, we talked about the capital gains tax going up to 40%. The comments were so split between very angry people on both sides, right? And you had people that were very angry at us saying that, oh, there we go. Here's just another group of guys spewing lies, trying to sell bullshit or this and that, because the Democrats, Biden would never think of doing something like this. And, this is all lies, all fake news. And then the other side saying, well, there you go. That's the Democrats. They're going to screw up the country. They're going to tank everything. And, and this is all going to hell. And they're killing investing. I mean, just anger.
Yeah.
And my thing was just more of the level of fear from people. Because to me, that kind of reaction is just fear. They're so scared of something like this happening that they automatically fall back to anger. At no point did we say, one, we didn't say that this is happening for sure, because this is still talks and needs to pass, but Biden has pretty much stuck to these same policies. That's what we were covering. And what we cover is for education purposes, is for you to understand, if this was to happen, what will you do to prepare for it? Not sit there, complain, and moan and whine about how unfair the world is. You understand? Like, that does absolutely nothing for you. The whole point was, like, if it goes to 40%, you're going to get taxed 40% on any profit over $1 million, right? That's a huge tax. I mean, that's a huge freaking tax.
Yeah.
Right? So all that should mean to you is not, could you be upset or something that's happening? Sure, for a little bit. But now you got to start thinking strategic. So you say, okay, well, I got to make sure that my planning happens, that I don't have $1 million profit.
Yeah. Well,
in a
it's
year.
just like, if you have something, it's just, all right, if they're going to start passing these things and I have a huge windfall in a property that I've owned for 20 years, have a lot of capital gains in that, it's like, probably think about selling that or doing something different to where, like, all right, I need to recapitalize this. When I do sell it, I don't have that. Like, let's do a cash out refinance to pull the equity out now, to where when I do sell it in 5-10 years, if that tax does get passed,
Yep.
you have the ability to pull that money out and you don't have to worry about that big capital gain sales tax.
And I think that is a perfect example right there. Straighten your mic. If there's any issue with the audio, guys, let us know. But that's a great example. Like, if you're about to sell properties, right, and you're in real estate, you have maybe a bunch of properties, and you're doing that. You're about to sell them to try to move that money over to a bigger investment or whatever it is, and you see that between all the equity, yeah, you're probably gonna net $1 million. So why not go ahead?
Well, it's not net $1 million on that one investment. It's netting $1 million.
No, period.
Over the year.
Yeah, over the
so
year.
If you make $100,000 a year, and all of a sudden you have a $900,000 windfall from a property, you're at $1 million. Anything over that is now 40.
Exactly. So it's not just strictly from properties. It's just your profit, period. But we are a real estate company, so we're talking in real estate terms. So if you have these properties, you have buy and hold, because the majority of the time that's how you're building that level of equity, and you're gonna have to sell, like John says, refinance some of that equity out. You're gonna be able to pull it tax free and then sell them. So you'll sell them. Your equity went down a little bit, and maybe you'll be able to skate underneath the $1 million. Now, if you're a much bigger investor, and let's say maybe you're flipping a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you started a bunch of flips the year prior, or new construction, whatever it is, and you're dumping them all the following year, and it's going to create between that and everything else over $1 million windfall. Well, the point of all this is for you to sit down, try to find a tax strategist, right? We have Brian Lang on the show, And you could go into our YouTube, check out that video. I put his contact info. He does a consultation and everything. He has tax strategy, everything that you're going to need. So reach out to a tax strategist and plan it out ahead of time. You understand? When all these people were getting so appalled at the video, which is funny because it's like a 30-second clip and it created that much emotion. You're getting so appalled, so offended by this video. Instead of, what I'm saying is, like, in case it does happen, are you prepared? Instead of complaining, bitching, and moaning and saying it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. Okay, are you going to wait until it does? And then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So again, guys, everything that we cover on the show is for your education. It's for you to be informed. Be smart about it. Don't be emotional. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. If your feelings are being hurt, that's your problem. There's something wrong with you that you're being so sensitive. That being said, like, the whole point of this, right? Why we do this is to help people educate them.
Yeah.
It's not to piss you off about Biden or Trump or the right or the left. It's not about that. It's about what's happening and how can you prepare.
Yeah. So we had one of the listeners, kind of Tommy Ray, put in here, between forbearance expiring 30th of June, and the tax law changing in regards to huge capital gains or no 1031 exchanges. Anyone else see a large context being shaped to force a herd sell-off? Well, I mean, it's also one of the things I've been thinking about too, is it's like the current administration wants home ownership.
Yeah.
You can see in their infrastructure plans some of the stuff that they want to put money towards. And it's one of the things right now, like the market lacks inventory. So I can see them passing things, trying to get some form of sell-off to put more inventory on the market, because you have so many buyers fighting over the smallest little bit of inventory. And I'm sorry, like, FHA is always inferior to a conventional loan. The underwriting is less, the appraisals are less stringent, to where, like, your FHA buyer, that's the entry-level program to get into a house, they can't get into a house because they can't get conventional. They need FHA. The credit's not good. They don't have money, down payment, whatever it may be. You have the anti-flipping laws of the previous owner has to own it for 90 days. The FHA, we have a house we're going to be listing here in the next month, and it's like, it won't qualify for FHA financing for another month. And we'll probably get conventional financing in there, where the market needs inventory. I could see them passing things that are incentivizing or disincentivizing long-term holding of property to get more inventory onto the market.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I mean, one of the things I found interesting is a good friend of ours, local real estate agent, Tim Allums, sent us a thread from Facebook, and I'm trying to think back to it, but it was pretty much about how a lot of builders have pulled back a little bit, and there's some builders that are putting within their contract that if at the time of completion the prices have gone up more than 5%, then they have the right to up the price, or the seller or the buyer can just back out.
Yep.
You know, because the problem is, like, by the time a builder's done building, they spent more than they anticipated because of all the costs, everything.
Like, you look at all these builders, you drive through, like, about a month ago, I was showing some people around to some pre-built areas, and the lots are already pre-sold.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, this person's already saying, I'm going to buy this lot, and you're going to build me that house. Well, it could be 12 to 18 months before that thing's done. Who knows what the cost of lumber is going to do? So I see it. It sucks for the consumer, and it sucks for the buyer too. They're like, they don't want to put that in there, but they have to, where it's like, I want to contract you on this house. You want to contract on this house. But we have this current situation right now in our economy where, like, I can't narrow down prices. Like, the supply chains are so disrupted across the market that it can fluctuate up and down and sideways all over the place, to where, like, this is the price now, but if it goes up 20%, you could lose this house, or you got to put more money down. So that is the risk that goes in.
Well, and then you also have some builders that are just going to the cost plus. So, if you're hiring a builder to build a house, they're just going to say, look, I'll build it, but we're doing cost plus because of the same thing. And I mean, it's getting to a point where what I'm more curious about with policymakers is, and this is coming from complete ignorance on my part. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. But do these policymakers bother to have investors and or real estate professionals giving them consultations and advising them before they bring out one of these dumbass policies. You know what I mean? Like, if you have somebody that actually understands real estate and is in the real estate market, wouldn't they be able to advise them like, hey, if you want to do this, like you said, stop hurting FHA buyers by making it that you can't sell to an FHA buyer for 90 days because you're hurting the FHA buyers. In a hot market like we have right now, we don't need FHA buyers. What qualifies you for a conventional loan? 5% down?
And a credit.
Yeah, and a decent credit score, and you qualify for conventional. And there's a lot more people. And now you have a lot of people coming in from California and stuff that they're coming with decent amount of money that they're even able to pay cash. I mean, we saw now last week a property in downtown San Antonio in La Vaca. It was a freaking grocery store. Still looks like a freaking grocery store. An amazing rehab. I don't know who did the project, but I give them credits. The rehab looked beautiful, at least on pictures. It looked gorgeous. The house sold for $750,000.
It listed for $750,000, 12 days.
In cash.
Just boom, cash, baby. Drop it on the. I wonder if one of these days I want to go to title companies and be like, drop cash. But
Oh, well, you got to film it because then if it's not on Facebook, then it didn't happen.
then it didn't happen.
But you're looking at these kind of things, and who are you hurting? All the first-time home buyers that supposedly you're trying to help.
Yeah.
Which John?
Yeah, there's two of us in here.
All right. So Bar and John. Just so. Yeah, you probably that boom. You probably blew out the mic.
Sorry.
An animal. but yeah, I mean, those are the things that I'm more curious about. It's like, can we have people that are part of the industry advising and helping out our politicians and the policymakers to make sure that they're making policies that's actually going to help people? You know,
Well,
so
I mean, and that is one thing I don't envy being a politician because you got people coming from every which direction, and every time somebody comes with a good idea, there's somebody else coming that will come out and be like, that's a bad idea because of XYZ. A caveat to, hey, remove the 90-day anti-flipping laws. I was like, well, now you're going to incentivize people to do the really cheap flips, just kind of grab it, put lipstick on a pig, and throw it off to FHA buyers who are the most vulnerable to not having cash to be able to up to buying turds like we've seen people do in the past, or get roped into.
What's stopping people from doing that now?
If you hold it for 90 days, there's more chances that you get caught doing things like with the city, like where if you just like, you know what, let's just lipstick on a pig in a week and throw it on the market and get it sold off to somebody else before they even catch it.
What I'm saying is that people are doing that now. People are doing that now because what we call hoteling, right?
Yeah.
That they're buying these properties, barely cleaning them up and slapping them on the market instantly, and they're selling instantly.
They're selling instantly to a conventional buyer. Yeah. Somebody's got a little better credit score, a little bit more cash in pocket to where they can withstand.
You got to have an inspection reports. I mean, they're very thorough.
You can hide things behind walls. Like they don't check plumbing systems and that stuff to where you have a broken sewer line. Well, you don't know that because I know there was one house that somebody like came back to us and saying, hey, you owned this house at one point. Did you ever check the plumbing? It was like, no, I didn't renovate it. Like I sold it to somebody else. So yes, we have title of it, but somebody else bought it from us. Yeah. And they went down the line and like whoever they sold it to and whatever renovations they did to it, they never checked the sewer line. They got an FHA loan and they had a massive sewer break and all the sewers backed up.
Put contingencies, especially to protect them, right? Like put barriers where it's like, look, what are the problems that an inspection report can't find? Sewer problems. Okay, you need to have a plumbing check before you close on it, right? So it's like that's probably what, an extra $400 or $500, but
But that's what I'm saying. FHA buyers are the reason they're going to FHAs because they usually don't have money.
Yeah, but they have a ton of incentives. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, if you don't have money, you shouldn't be buying a house.
Oh, exactly. Period. But that's usually, especially right now, that's not who's doing it. That's why the anti-flipping law is in place.
Well, so I have an article here that I feel ties a little bit into this. So you have President Joe Biden has asked Education Secretary Miguel Cardona to prepare a memo about his legal authority to cancel student debt. As the pressure grows for the administration to address the student loan crisis crippling millions of Americans, he'll look at the legal authority He'll look at the policy issue around that, and then he'll make a decision, Klain said. He hasn't made a decision on that either way. In fact, he hasn't yet gotten the memo that he needs to start focus on that decision. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and other Democrats from Capitol Hill are pressuring Biden to cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt through an executive action. Lawmakers have conceded that they lack the Republican support to pass the bill that would do the same. Biden has backed canceling up to $10,000, but has said that he does not think he has the legal authority to unilaterally wipe out as much as $50,000 without congressional action. So he's not saying he wouldn't do it. He just doesn't feel he doesn't have the legal authority. How can you
have 10, but not 50? That's one of the things. It's like, if you have the ability to wipe it out, you have the ability to wipe it out. But why does the dollar amount really matter? It's like, I think I can do 10, but I don't know if I have the legal authority to do 50. Like,
yeah.
There's some amount. There must be some kind of weird thing in there with the way the laws are written that you only wipe off so much debt without congressional. I don't know, something. But so this is one of those that
it continues. It says, I understand the impact of debt and it can be debilitating, Biden said. I am prepared to write off the $10,000 debt, but not $50,000 because I don't think I have the authority to do it. More than 40 million people in the U.S. are estimated to have student loan debt. The Federal Reserve estimates that in the third quarter of 2020, Americans owed more than $1.7 trillion in student loans. White House press secretary told reporters February that while the review of his executive authority continued, Biden would be eager to sign a bill that provided $10,000 in debt relief. So here's where I'm going at with this, is that you have approximately 40 million people in the U.S. that have student loan debts. You times that by $10,000 a person, and you have $400 billion of debt that got wiped away. Yes. I do simple math very well.
I can add zeros at the end of numbers.
Yeah. My question is, we've already seen massive pressure on assets, right? Because of all the money that's being printed, all the stuff, people are looking for some form of excitement, I guess, or whatever. So we're seeing already asset prices being propped up. We see it all the time with stock market. We're seeing it with real estate. So if you're wiping away $40 billion worth of people's debt, I mean, I imagine there's probably a lot of student loans at that point that might get close to canceling out at 10 grand, right? There's probably a lot of people that will get wiped out.
That's why they're doing 10 grand is like it would, I remember seeing a chart of it, and it would like eliminate student debt for a third of all borrowers.
Exactly.
Just by doing 10 grand.
So you're doing this. So my thing is like, now you're putting even more money into the hands of people that are probably would love to buy a house if they haven't already. You know, you're putting a lot more money. So where's that money going? If we see the trends as they've been developing, it's going into assets. It's going into the stock market, Robinhood. You know, now we have the NFTs and Bitcoin and all these other things. They're being propped up by people having a lot of excess cash in their hands. So to me, if this happens, you know, this is another thing that I could definitely see affecting real estate prices and inventory shortages even more.
Well, my thing with this is, okay, $10,000 in student debt wipes out a third of people are saying, oh, this will help so much homeowners. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen a study yet of like, what is the average payment on 10 grand? So I was like, if that $10,000 loan that's spread out over 10, 15, 20 years for a student loan, the reason you can't get a home, like to me in my mind, like that's a very small payment of like $100, $150, maybe $200. And that's the reason it's pushing you over 50% debt to income.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be buying a house anyways, in my mind.
Oh, well, of course.
And that's where like I haven't seen a study based on that yet. To where my next question to this is like, if they had the unilateral authority, and he says, I would sign a bill that would wipe out $10,000 student loan debt because it's an economic stimulus. They just passed a $1.9 trillion stimulus without a Republican vote. Mm-hmm. Why was it not put in that? He promised it in the campaign. Like, why was it not put in that bill that they just passed without any Republican support when they're saying they wouldn't get any support to pass a bill for this? So that's where it's like, if it was a stimulus plan and you talked about doing it, like, why was that not included in that portion of the bill? So I don't know. That's
Yeah.
why I'm curious, like the direction they're going with this, and then also the aspect of like the validity of 10 grand. Is that really that big of a burden on people? Like I would like to see, okay, 10 grand. I got it. I understand the debt that people carry and how many of them carry that much debt. Like, what is the average payment on those loans? Obviously, it depends on what they started at. Where like, hey, they had $100,000 and they got 5 years left in the loan, and they only have $10,000 balance left. They're still paying that payment of the 100,000 over the life of the loan, not 10,000 over the whole chunk of the
Well, I
life of it.
mean, and
So-
and I'm not saying you're alluding to this, but it could also be that they didn't pass the 10 grand because they want to do something bigger, right? And there's probably thinking if we do the 10 grand now, it's going to be harder to do another one later, right? Where it might be harder to get that one passed. So why not put all of our eggs on something bigger
Yeah.
and then maybe go down? I don't know. I mean, but regardless of why it is or isn't, it's more what I'm more curious about and what I'm more trying to allude to is what effects that's going to have when you're putting that much more money back into people's pockets, you're wiping out that kind of debt and everything. Now you're made people, a little bit wealthier. So they're going to feel like now we can afford to go buy a house. So that's more buyers to an already massively shrinking inventory. I don't know. I think it's something to pay attention to. I saw earlier El Tomas puts anti-flipping law ? So anti-flipping law is pretty much
It's not an actual called the
yeah,
anti-flipping
we
law.
call it that, but investors call it the anti-flipping law because it's created so if you're an investor, you buy a house, you renovate it, and you try to sell it, you have to hold it for at least 90 days, 91 days before you can accept an offer from an FHA buyer. The reason this is called an anti-flipping law is because the majority of the buyers were FHA at the moment. So when you had such a large buyer pool of FHA, and we did this consistently when we flip properties, is we would look at the area we were flipping, and if we saw all of the sold comps and sales terms, they had FHA financing, we knew that we had to buy that property and at least hold it for 90 days. So that's pretty much why we call it anti-flipping.
And it caused us to where like we would buy it and it needed a small renovation, maybe 6 weeks worth of work. Well, we wouldn't even start it for a month and a half, because there's no point in fixing up a house, having it all ready to go, have that capital laid just to have them, and then put it on the market and then have it just sit there and you get all these offers in FHA, and you're like, I can't accept this contract for another month.
Yep.
Well, you waited, so come back in a month. Well, they're not going to wait around in a month. They're going to go find another house to put an offer in on, and they're gone. But now your house had sat on the market for 30 days in an insanely hot market, and it made people think, well, what's wrong with that house? Why has it been on the market for so long? So it scared buyers. So we would always, at that time, wait to put up houses on the market until day 91 so we could actually accept those offers. So we just call it anti-flipping because a lot of times I can get a house done quicker than 90 days and get on the market, but we would actually
and then we also have holding costs, we have money costs, we have, there's other stuff. And one thing that I always talk about real estate is that houses don't like to be sitting vacant. They start hurting themselves. So when you have a property that's just sitting vacant, you have more of a chance that, it can get vandalized, people can break in, things go bad. There's a higher risk. Houses with plumbing, with everything, especially if it's an older home, it needs to be constantly used so it stays working well, so things don't back up, so you don't get kind of grime and stuff build up in the pipes. I mean, there's a lot of things involved. So it hurts the investor, but you adjust for those pain points and you try to make the best of it. So that I hope that answers your question. That's pretty much why we call it anti-flipping. You want to cover the unless you have another article, but you want to go over the Biden $2 trillion
infrastructure plan.
Yeah,
that's something that one of the administration said they wanted to do. Is they passed the COVID bill and they wanted to follow up with a big infrastructure plan. They're talking $3 to $4 trillion infrastructure plan, and then how they're going to pay for it. They're going to raise taxes and all that stuff. So this week, Joe Biden released portions of it, anyways. So President Joe Biden unveiled a more than $2 trillion infrastructure package on Wednesday as his administration shifts its focus to bolster the post-pandemic economy. The Biden plan outlined Wednesday includes roughly $2 trillion in spending over 8 years and would raise the corporate tax to 28% to fund it. Currently, it's at 21%. Speaking at a Union Hall in Pittsburgh, the president called it a vision to create the strongest, most resilient, innovative economy in the world and millions of good-paying jobs along the way. The proposal would put $621 billion into transportation infrastructure such as bridges, roads, public transit, ports, airports, and electric vehicle development. Direct $400 billion to care for elderly and disabled Americans. Inject more than $300 billion into improving drinking water infrastructure, expanding broadband access, and upgrade electrical grid. Put more than 300 building. This is the one I found interesting, is put more than $300 billion into building and retrofitting affordable housing along with constructing and upgrading schools. Invest $580 billion in American manufacturing, research and development, and job training efforts. The president responded to criticism of the proposed tax hike, saying he would not increase the burden on anyone making less than $400,000 per year. He said he did not aim to punish he isn't aiming to punish the wealthy. Among the administration's goals, it aims to revamp 20,000 miles of roads and highways and repair 10,000 bridges. The proposal calls to build a national network of 500,000 electric vehicle chargers by 2030 and replace 50,000 diesel public transit vehicles. The administration hopes to build and rehabilitate 500,000. This is one that I found interesting. They wanted to talk a little bit. The administration hopes to build or rehabilitate 500,000 homes for low and middle income Americans and replace all lead pipes in drinking water systems. The plan also aims to deliver universal affordable broadband service. What are your thoughts?
On just that or the whole thing?
The whole thing. I mean, the parts of it, mainly the proposal of the 620.
One thing that I did hear, I read from him saying, was that he wasn't gonna. It wasn't taxing anybody making under 400 grand, but that is not including. That is including a household income. So it could be an individual, but if you're in a household and you're filing jointly, that you're married and everything, and together you're making over 400 grand, you're gonna hit that. You're gonna get hit with that tax, right? So, yes, if you're an individual making less than 400, you're fine. But if you're married, now it becomes more of an issue. You know, if you're two married couples, airline pilots, whenever that comes back, or or doctors, or anything of that sort, you're probably gonna, you're gonna see an increase on that.
Well, that's also one of the things too, when they say they're not going to raise taxes on foreign, which it may be true. Like, they're not going to feel the tax impact, but where you would feel the impact long term is ability to compensate and pay people more, because a corporation isn't having to pay more in tax. They have less money to give bonuses, benefits, pay raises, and have less capital to enrich their people that work for them. So it's one of the things, you won't feel the tax impact, but you might feel the impact over long term. That's where most people don't think, like, well, I'm not going to feel the tax impact. Yeah, but somebody's paying that tax. That money's being sucked out of the economy by the government, and that force, your employer does not have the money to give you raises over the next 10 years or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean,
so you got to look at it from the other side too.
And those are the things that we talk about, the dangers of sometimes trying to raise taxes on on the wealthy and stuff like that, is that a lot of the wealthy people are what move the economy, right? They're what creates the jobs, what creates housing, massive infrastructures. A lot of it depends on the wealthy. So if you start hurting them, you start hurting their incentives to want to do all these things. But one thing that I see too is that they're also doing tax laws and everything against kind of like investments, right? So they're talked about the 1031 possibly going away and other things like that. We know people that invest quite a bit in real estate, but they're not necessarily making 400 grand a year. They're under that. But people that I look at that are also investing quite a bit, they make maybe 150, 200 plus a year, here in Texas, of course. I don't know, California, New York. So those people are also going to get affected. Even though you say, oh, but I don't make 400. No, but you're getting affected in other ways now. You understand? Your investments are going to get affected. So, I mean, it's a lot of repercussions that I think kind of creates those ripple effects. That's what we try to look at in this market, is we try to see, okay, this is happening here. What's the ripple effect that's going to cause over here? Yeah. Right? Because it's the same thing that we talked about last week when COVID first started, and people would say, how's COVID affecting your business? We're like, right now, it's not. But we haven't seen the ripple effects yet.
Yeah, I mean, a year ago, we're all like, oh, God, what's this going to do to real estate? Because think about it, April last year was like, we just shut down. We're in the middle of the shutdown and stuff like that. And this is the month that last year, the year-over-year median sales price appreciation actually dropped and went negative for the first time since 2012. Or is it like, oh shit, like what's going to happen? Thankfully for our industry, it recovered very quickly and it came back with a vengeance.
Yeah. And then the infrastructure, I mean, the whole building, what was it? How many homes?
500,000.
500,000 homes.
Administration hopes to build or rehabilitate 500,000 homes for low and middle income Americans. And this is one that
How?
Yeah. We all know the light was so we all know that the government is not known for efficiency. We've talked about in the past how much it costs to build for the government to build. For those of you that haven't seen it, basically there was a case study done when I was working large scale construction by a general contractor, and they compared what it would cost to build a hospital in the private sector and for the government. So they compared a hospital they were currently building for the government, how much it cost, and said $600 million to build this hospital. And they ran a case study of what would it cost for a similar project built by the private sector, and it only cost $400 million. So you look at that price increase, and it's just due to the red tape and the inefficiencies of government, everyone having their hands in the pie and having decisions that drives the cost up. So now you're talking about being able to do it for homes. Well, obviously they cannot build a home as quickly or as efficiently on a cost perspective as a private sector could.
Mm-hmm.
So now my thing is, how does this stimulate the economy? So when you talk about building roads and infrastructure, bridges and things like that, okay, I understand that directly impacts, because now look, between here and Austin, we have a lot of commerce that goes back and forth on 35. That's why there's always constantly traffic jams, because people are trying to get back and forth. So if you can speed that up and get people back and forth quicker, then that is going to have a net positive gain on the amount of information, the amount of commerce and velocity of money that it would cost, where it's saying, hey, it costs us $1, but it returns $2 of investment. I mean, you look at the highway system that was built, I think it was the 50s, 60s, and 70s across the nation, that had a net positive gain. But now housing. So obviously they are going to build a house and they are going to sell it to the private sector, and it would probably be at a loss for what it actually costs them to what they sell it for. How does that return a positive gain? Somebody buying a house on the overall economy, because it's a person for low and middle income, they're going to have debt attached to it, obviously.
Because
where does that net positive gain? Like, how does that speed up the economy? How does that speed up commerce? How does it do things? You're just now putting somebody, like, saddling them with debt. We're like, where is the positive gain for
the
having
thing
them
is
get into
that
housing?
we go back to what you and I have spoken about a bunch of times, is that instead of teaching people how to fish, right, they keep trying to figure out ways of giving people fish. And, you know, people deserve a decent home to live in. Agreed. People deserve clean drinking water. Agreed. But you giving them everything does absolutely nothing for them. You understand? Instead, like, there are ways that people can actually get these things for themselves. You understand? There are ways that people can get the jobs, the education, everything that they need, so they can go ahead and buy themselves a decent house or rent themselves a decent house and get themselves good drinking water and internet and all of these things, right? There's ways for that. It's called education.
Yeah.
You got to worry more about reforming and putting money into educating these people than doing anything else. And that's the problem. Is like they say, oh, we're going to build housing. Like, to your point, you're going to create all this money. You're going to build these houses at a loss. So it's going to end up costing the country even more, because now this investment that you made is already negative.
Well, that's one thing. Like, I was curious, like, how, like L. Thomas put in here, the econ class I never got. And it's like, no, they and I think they do that on purpose, because smart people don't get into massive amounts of debt. They don't use credit cards. They don't use the high interest payment things,
Right.
the vehicles, but that doesn't make money for the investment banking or in the banking sector, because they want you to take credit cards. That's why they give them to you for free. So you do run up credit cards, and they know most people aren't fiscally responsible, don't understand basic economics and how much that debt really hurts you and what it really costs you. So they want you to do those things. So I think it's by design that they have that in place. And it's no surprise. And to Tommy Ray's point, like what really needs to be done is disconnected private money from the election process would really, really help to go get a clean capitalism and its good side effects. And I 100% agree with that. And I think there's a lot of people that we talk to, left, right, center, wherever, they're like, yeah, we should really get all the lobbyist money and all of that crap out of the political system for sure.
Well, I mean, you have to be able to empower people and give them the ability, allow them to create the ability to take control of their own lives, right?
Correct.
Where instead of trying to pretty much like, it's okay, go sit down, we got you. It's okay, go sit down, we got you. Like that doesn't help anybody.
And it's not like it's the Biden administration. All administrations do it. But that's one thing when I say the administration helps to build and rehabilitate 500,000 low and income houses. I don't understand how that's being twisted. Like I would love to like try to figure out like how are they seeing this or how are they going to sell it as that is an infrastructure plan, an economic stimulus, like the roads and bridges. 100%. The amount of people you're going to employ doing all that, getting these roads fixed, getting them widened to get more people being able to go faster. Like understand that 100%.
Yeah.
It's like, but like the building of houses, I guess maybe it's being able to get more people to like say San Antonio, like we have a housing shortage. Well, if they inject a supply of housing, that's bringing more people to a city to where.
Well, and then also homeowners tend to spend more.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean,
like
once you own a home, then you say, oh, I got to, fill in these rooms. I got to get a patio set. I got to do this. I got to do that. So you end up spending more.
Yeah.
So, and I get that. But my thing is like the government doing this hurts us though, because the government doing this is putting us into more debt doing all of this stuff because it's not going to generate more revenue.
One thing I saw too is who would you say is biggest economic threat to the United States on the world stage? China. Okay. Our debt to GDP.
China's huge.
Huge. We like to have fun. Our debt to GDP currently is sitting at like 105, 110% or something like that, or somewhere it's in the low hundreds. And one of the articles that I had in here, the article didn't really give any good substance like I thought it did. But one thing they did put in here is that China's debt to GDP ratio rose to 285% as of the end of third quarter 2020, up from the average 251% of between 2016 and 2019. I thought they were more in line with the United States as far as their debt to GDP. I didn't realize they were over 2.5 times our debt to GDP. Where I look at now, I have a little bit different perspective on that. Where like Japan, big economy, their debt to GDP is blown through the roof and has been forever. So now I understand where these people say like we can afford to run our national debt up to ungodly amounts of levels without any effect. Where like you have this to where we know like, hey, buying a home or putting housing on the market brings economic stimulus via the things we were just talking about. Like they now spend money on house or things for their house. It allows more housing onto the market when it's obvious like there's so low inventory that we need inventory and builders can't keep up because of the government regulation. But we leave that out of the conversation for now. But it's putting more housing onto it where it's like, hey, they know it's going to be at a loss. But it's at a loss to the government debt to GDP, not the overall gross domestic product and bringing people's economic lives up.
Oh, and I mean, the Federal Reserve said as much when, and we covered this, how they came out and they said the money supply, stop thinking about that. Don't worry about that. Unemployment, don't worry about that. Those are not things that we're figuring anymore. So they pretty much came out and said, like, look, it's printing money to infinity and beyond. Right? Because it just no longer matters. And there's an excellent book I read many years ago called Currency Wars from Jim Rickards, and he explained exactly this. He talked about currency wars. Pretty much the U.S. prints more, China prints more. China prints more, the U.S. prints more. Like they're all going head to head on all this. Like nobody's getting ahead of anybody else. Where they get ahead is who is producing more, not just increasing their debt, but who is also producing more. And Tommy said here that we are our own biggest threat, and I agree. I think we are not focused on producing more. This is why my biggest frustration is with all of this giving, is that it doesn't teach anybody to produce. It's not incentivizing people to produce. It's not incentivizing people to solve their own problems, to create solution. When we look at all the greatest things that have come out,
it produces it can consume. That's what I'm talking about incentivizing them to consume, not produce.
right? And the problem is, like, if all you do is consume, you just become a suck.
Well,
You don't generate anything.
Yeah, but you are consuming because somebody else is producing. Now it depends who is producing that product. If we're buying it all from China, big difference.
Well, that's what I'm saying. China is more focused on infrastructure and production. That's what they keep investing on. They keep building their ways of producing more and shipping more and putting out more to increase their supply in the world. We're not focused on those things. And we go back to like the tax laws. If you start, increase the taxes on the wealthy, you do all these things. You look at the greatest innovations that have come that we all love using, everything from technology, phones, everything. Yes, they were all rich because they provided something the world wanted, the world needed, right? If you take all of that away, innovation goes away. And all these cool things that we are all used to having is no longer there. Because guess what? You need money to incentivize people because it's a lot of freaking work to create innovation.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of sacrifice. And you want some compensation. We all want to live good. We all want to have the ability to have whatever we want. We all want it. It's just there's some people that are willing to work much harder than others to achieve it. And now we are punishing those people for doing so. And don't get me wrong, I am not saying that there shouldn't be increases on people that maybe are taking abusing certain loopholes maybe in the system or whatever it is.
That's how the
and by all
Republicans'
means,
arguments, how they want to fund it is focus on not raising taxes but closing loopholes.
Yeah, okay.
But now let me ask the caveat to that. So it's like, okay, they raise the taxes and stuff like that. So all of us that are currently in business now or had been in business for a long time are irritated and pissed about it. But the new person coming up is playing under those new laws. So and everybody's playing, they can't get around them. Everyone's on the same playing field. So the old guard is like, man, that really sucks. I have to pay more in taxes. But the new guard coming up saying, I have to pay these taxes. So what's the difference of when we started, it was 35%. And we still had the same ambitions, and when the tax rate dropped, now it's going up to like the 28% and stuff like that. Where I don't like how much of an effect does it really have when you have the same generation? The ambition is the ambition. The ambition is like, hey, I want to create a better life for myself.
Yes.
But now everybody's playing the same playing field. So like, what does it really matter? The ambition isn't a thing. I want to be rich, but now everyone gets rich under the same context that they're playing the same field. It's not like, hey, I have to pay a higher tax bracket just because I am who I am, not because of the money I make. I just know, like, because tax laws are unbiased in the sense that if you make over a percentage, you pay more in taxes.
For sure.
So that's where like the new people coming up are used to the current tax laws. So does that really
again,
change?
I'm not saying that going to 40% is going to stop somebody from making millions of dollars. Right?
I don't think
like
that's going to slow down.
They're
like
still
going
to keep going. They're just going to be like, all right, well, I'm just taking home a lot less. But it's going to keep going. My whole thing and the whole point of this show is to look at trends. My whole thing is what we go back to is that you're not going to solve the problems by trying to give. You solve the problems by trying to help people, by helping people create and have the confidence in themselves, the knowledge, the ability to create. Together, we can do tremendously more than the government trying to handle everything for us.
Oh, I 100% agree with that.
That's my whole thing. So it's not so much that, oh, they're going to take 1031s away, or they might increase the capital gains to 40%, or this or that. We're all going to adjust as we have in the past. We're all going to make it work. We'll figure it out. Some people are going to go out of business. Some people are going to thrive, and the world keeps turning. My thing is like the mentality behind it. That's my frustration with all of this, is that mentality of, oh, you're struggling here. Oh, you're hungry here. And it's like, they're still going to be struggling. They're still going to be hungry right after they finish that plate. You understand? Because you didn't give them anything for them to be able to fend for themselves.
Well, there's a topic I heard about this week. I didn't add it in here because I feel like neither you or I don't have the, not expertise, but like the credentials to have an opinion on it. So much.
I have an opinion on anything.
But it was about them restructuring and removing drill sergeants from like basic training and stuff like that in the military.
Drill sergeants? What
Yeah,
the
so like
hell-
they're
What's the
redoing.
point of that?
They're restructuring how people enter like boot camp and things like that, and they're doing test runs to make boot camp less harsh towards people emotionally. But neither you or I are military to have an opinion on it, and that's where it's like, hey, can have our opinions, but I don't think we have the right to, because like neither one of us are military or know what that really goes.
Tommy, what's your opinion?
Yeah, Tommy can have his opinion
So
on that
hold
for
on,
sure.
explain this to me. Explain this to me.
I
So
don't know.
they're saying they want when somebody signs up to the military or whatever, they want that preliminary phase that we all know is like the most
boot
grueling
camp,
training
yeah.
and all of that. They want to make that nicer.
From what I understood, like I didn't read a whole lot, do a whole bunch of research into it, but they were removing like drill instructors from basic training.
Why is this? Because it hurts people's feelings?
I don't know. I have no idea what the whole purpose of it was, or why what studies were done behind it, but they're removing drill instructors from the boot camp process.
Try to find more information next time when you bring up a point.
Yeah, who knows what it is.
Yeah.
But switching topics a little bit, let's go on to some of the business news away from. We'll transition over because we're talking about Biden's infrastructure plan. I have an article in here that I found that the business world is divided on whether to fight Biden's proposal corporate tax hike or to just let it happen. The U.S. business community is trying to figure out how to address President Joe Biden's infrastructure plan, which calls for higher corporate taxes to help pay for at least $2 trillion in government spending. Lobbyists and other D.C. influencers told CNBC that they have received calls from anxious corporate clients eager for guidance on the path forward. Several prominent business groups, such as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, oppose the proposed tax hikes behind the scenes, though some companies are considering whether to put much up a fight at all because of corporate America's demand for an infrastructure plan. And I think they're all over the place because I think there's a lot of money being spent in ways that will be attractive to a lot of companies. Another corporate lobbyist told CNBC, if you are involved in broadband, electric vehicles, you go down the list. There's a lot of positive spending that corporate America will like. The lobbyist represents auto and airline giants along with large private equity firms. So that's where I was talking about. They don't know. It's like, man, do I fight this corporate thing or do I not? Because the spending is going to directly benefit myself. Or like you said, broadband. I do agree having nationwide broadband and high-speed internet would drastically and have a good return on investment. Better airports, better roads, better bridges. Like this lobbyist that represents auto and airline giants. For sure, his clients are like, man, 7% hike. We go back 5 years ago, we were at 35%. We're down to 21. Now we're going up to 28. Still not bad, but the money they're planning on spending is going to directly affect our bottom line later on down the road once this stuff's done over the 8-year period that they're talking about. But I'm sure there are industries that are not happy about having to spend, like oil and gas. I'm sure they are not happy about the corporate tax side because they know, hey, my corporate profits are going to shrink from this, and I now have to pay more taxes.
Yeah.
So I think the business world's kind of torn of what they should and shouldn't do.
It's also, I mean, what you and I talk about a lot is when we talk to people that are Democrats or Republicans, right? They're picking a side. And first of all, I think that's really bad to do. I understand we're tribal in nature, that we need to pick a tribe, but in politics, I think you need to try to be a little bit more in the middle as much as you can. But that being said, like, you got to look at the plan for what it is, and not everything is going to be terrible, right? Not everything is going to be a horrible idea. So it's okay to actually look at the plan and look and say, hey, this is some good ideas. These are some good plans. These are, this is going to benefit us. It's going to benefit a lot of people. This, not so much, right? This is going to hurt us. And it might be something where it's like, well, it's a give and take. You're going to get hit over here, but you're going to get a little bump over here. So you gotta look at it with, I think, a more open-minded approach to everything. But we touched on this a few times, and I wanted to just cover this article. And it's pretty much ever since he was running for president, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has been saying nice things about a tax on vehicle miles traveled. The idea is simple. Tax drivers for every mile they drive. That way, as the U.S. automobile fleet electrifies and the gas tax revenues dwindle, we will still have money to pay for roads. So Buttigieg spoke favorably about the VMT tax in a congressional hearing. If we believe in that users pay principle, the idea that how we pay for roads is based on how much you drive, the gas tax used to be the obvious way to do it. It's not anymore. A so-called VMT tax or mileage tax, whatever you want to call it, could be a way to do it. So the secretary spoke back on Monday. No, the secretary walked it back on Monday, and the idea did not make it into President Biden's infrastructure bill. Sooner or later, however, M&T's time will come because the gas tax isn't cutting it and hasn't for some time. Between 1947 and 2010, according to a study, the amount of money the U.S. has spent on highways and roads surpasses revenues from gas taxes and other user fees by $800 billion in today's dollars. The ratio is getting worse since the federal gas tax hasn't been raised in almost 3 decades. That shows diminishing returns as cars get more fuel efficient. Taxing miles has one big advantage over taxing gas. It captures electric vehicles. It has one big disadvantage. It reduces the incentive to buy electric or fuel-efficient vehicles. This kind of innovation is already afoot in road pricing. Not only have 2 states, Oregon and Utah, adopted VMT pilots, but New York City has finally gotten federal approval to get started pricing access to its central business districts. Several states now have dynamic tolling on highways to reduce traffic by the mile. So, by the minute. I don't know, mile just seemed like it would have gone. But I mean, in New York, it's something that we always talk about. Like, I lived about an hour and a half outside of the city, and you wanted to go, let's say you wanted to go to Queens. I mean, you were spending a good amount of money just on tolls, because I mean,
what's a good amount of money? What is a good $10, $5, $20?
Oh, last time, no, it was closer to, I want to say closer to like 30.
Damn.
I'm not sure if that was 30 one way though, because some tolls are like $15 just one way. Yeah. And yeah, you can about like $30 to go into the city. And I mean, let's not even go into parking and everything else. But I mean, you have tolls all over New York. It's only in Texas that when I came here that I was surprised that I drove through all of Texas, not hit one toll. Yeah. I was like, wow, this is cool. And now they put one.
This is cool.
Yeah, they put
freedom, baby.
They put one toll to go around Austin, and people are freaking the hell out because they want to pay like $3 or something.
Yeah, there's like, nah.
Yeah, but my thing is like, will this incentivize more people to work from home? Right? We're already seeing a big shift in this already, where people are saying like, hey, let's. But we talked about it before in I believe the last Coffee with the Johns, on how we're seeing big companies, Amazon, Google, they're all adapting a format of a hybrid, work from home, come into the office a little bit, stuff like that. And then more people are wanting it because then they can live in a more affordable place and then travel to where the job is. And that is something, even where I lived, people used to do that. They used to live where I used to live, and they would travel into the city and work there because you can get paid much better. But with that pay, you couldn't live in the city because it wasn't enough. So you would live on the outskirts. But now you add more of a tax. So is that going to incentivize more people?
Well, that's always the adage I put. The private sector will always, always, always move faster than public sector, the government and stuff like this. So they're going to put these things in place, and they're like, oh, we're going to generate so much revenue based on past projections and our half best guess of what's going to happen in the future. And then they pass these things, and the next thing you know, boom, exactly that. Like, well, we're all working from home. We can live wherever. I don't even have to drive anywhere. So, and then it's like, you're just going to say, well, I don't want to drive. I'm going to have Uber Eats bring stuff. I have groceries delivered. I don't need to go anywhere.
Well,
So,
I mean, Brian Paulin puts here, my odometer broke.
that's another thing.
That's
It's like,
what
how
I'm
are they going to
curious.
test that?
Yeah.
How do you I guess you have to have vehicle inspections in Texas every year, so you'd have to start reporting mileage every year.
Yeah.
So when we go to around renew your vehicle, you have to take it in for inspection. So they just report the mileage along with that, and it's
But
like,
when you buy a brand new vehicle, isn't it that you don't get it inspected for a few years on a new vehicle?
I don't know. I don't
Like,
buy brand new vehicles, so
yeah, I haven't had a new vehicle ever. But
Oh.
yeah, I'm just but I mean this goes back to what we said before. This is not happening right now, people. So anybody on TikTok, don't freak the fuck out. Relax. But this is just, again, looking at trends, looking at things, how they're developing. If this was to happen, what do you feel this is going to do to all of this, people working from a distance and all of these things happening? Because now it's going to be like, shoot, this is costing me a lot more money to travel to work.
well, I mean, it's
You know?
it's just gonna break up and shift money around to where now places
Yeah.
like Wells Fargo just came out an article I had that plans start bringing releases their plans on how they're going to bring people back to work because they realize like, hey, working from home isn't collaborative. Like we need people in the office and stuff like that. So it's going to shift and change how business is done for certain
Yeah.
businesses, certain areas. But if you're in IT and tech, you weren't driving to work anyways. You're already wherever you wanted to be. So you weren't driving anyway. So it would change a lot of things and it would just create a shift. But I mean, that's the great thing is like with mass disruption like that, there are lots of opportunities that do prevail. So that does provide somebody the opportunity when they look into it to try to find the inefficiencies and make something more efficient.
Yeah.
For sure. So, I mean, with that said, I'll transition into the Wells Fargo plan. So this was done by the San Antonio Business Journal. So Wells Fargo's plan to start bringing employees back to the office in September. One thing I thought is like, why are they waiting all the way till September? I don't know. But Wells Fargo and Company told employees March 30th that it plans to have them start returning to offices soon after the September 6th Labor Day holiday, citing the significant increase in vaccination availability. The bank, which has been extended had been extending work from home on a month-to-month basis, told employees that it wanted to give them more notice to plan for the summer and the return to school for the 2021-22 school year. We believe most of us benefit by being physically together, Wells told employees, adding that it plans to move forward with office redesigns that seek to encourage more interactions and innovation. Being pulled into meetings, learning from seeing others at work, and the often unplanned casual interactions that occur when people see each other in the workplace can be really important, the bank said. This is especially true for those new to Wells Fargo or those early in their careers. Thoughts on that?
I don't like Wells Fargo.
I don't like Wells Fargo either.
I want them to just shut down. I think everything they do is just stupid. I don't know. Honestly, I honestly don't care as much. I couldn't venture an opinion.
Yeah,
I actually just don't care. Like,
you're a stay-at-home person, anyways.
Yeah,
So-
I am. I'm one of those people that like we're seeing vaccinations, all these things going up drastically. More and more people are getting vaccinated. I believe Biden pushed it to 200 million.
100 million in the first 100 days. Yeah.
Right. So we only have 350 million people in the country. So you're pretty much, at that point, we're probably going to see a big opening of the country. So I'm already thinking my shutdown begins around June, July, when everybody starts hitting the roads. You're not going to see me anymore. I'm done.
I don't know. Well, you don't drive much now anyways, but I'm out driving around like traffic is back 4 o'clock. And I'm like,
oh yeah, traffic is back, but I'm talking about just people everywhere now because people are going to definitely overcompensate for having felt so locked down that I think you're just going to see just.
I don't know. Here, we were pretty open. I mean, I guess the only thing that would good to come back would be like movie theaters and stuff, but like restaurants, they've been packed for months. Hotels packed for months. Like when we went to Austin a couple weekends ago, like every hotel was sold out and had been sold out for weeks, and we just lucky to find like cancellation.
But are they at full capacity?
Yeah. And like there's like, yeah, we're completely sold out. And like they're opening things up. But yeah, when we were walking around Austin downtown last week when we went down there, on a Sunday, there was people freaking everywhere. I was like, huh, that's good to see. So I don't know how much like more they're gonna like with the pent up demand, I guess, 'cause feel like they've been locked down. I guess some people have been. You have the people that are super scared of it, but I
Yeah.
think the majority of them here in Texas like are not. I mean, we can see in like
And
California.
then we'll probably see more, especially the summertime. We'll see more vacationing. You know what I mean? More
Yeah,
people wanting to get out, go places. I think if you own any Airbnbs this summer, you're probably gonna crush it. If you have them positioned in the right places of the towns and touristy spots and stuff like that, I think this summer you're gonna be crushing Airbnbs. You
yeah,
should probably consider on looking at, maybe raising your rates and stuff like that. Cause I could definitely see hotels, Airbnbs being booked solid through all of
yeah.
this. So, definitely just an incentive for me to not go anywhere. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on that article?
I mean, it's one thing that's good to see. One, I was like, why are they waiting all the way till September? But I guess they're
Just to give it time.
they're a worldwide conglomerate of a bank, and then I guess it's one of those things too that not every place is open. I mean, Texas they are, but in like California they're still pretty shut down. Northeast, you go overseas, like they're still shut down over there. And then I understand the aspect of like we're giving people time to plan out, saying, "Hey, September we're going back to work. You got 3 months to figure out your lifestyle."
Yeah.
Because like 1 year, it's easy like to figure out like, oh, everybody go home, and like, well, now you're at home with your kids, you can figure that stuff out. But now it's like you got to figure out that old lifestyle. It's going to take longer to come back.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sure. Yeah.
so
Well, and I'm sure that, right? Like in September, schools are starting back up, so there'll probably be a lot more information for parents as far as schooling goes. Going back to school, what's all that gonna happen? So, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see if. I mean, here's my conflicting thing with all this. I'm also hearing a lot of buzz and stories about a fourth wave coming. I didn't know we already went through a third one. I mean, I don't know what's considered, which one was the second and which one was
well,
the
you had your
third
first
wave.
one in March, April
Yeah.
last year. Had the one last summer that caused Texas to shut down. Then you had
Oh, that was the second wave?
that was the second wave, and
Oh,
that's when
okay.
everyone
I
started.
thought that was still part of the first one.
And then the third one was over this last winter.
Okay. So they're expecting a fourth one. I don't know if it's just for news headlines because the news doesn't seem to have much of, they don't have Trump in the stories, and now they're like trying to keep, I don't know, COVID alive, I guess.
I saw one
Um,
article or heard about it of like the ratings and number of viewership that's dropped since Trump hasn't been in office. I was like, I bet, because like he was a very easy person to follow and get a lot of good headlines out of.
Well,
And get
most people
to
don't even
watch.
know what the hell Biden is up to anymore, or what the president of the country is up to, because you don't hear anything about Biden, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, anyway, where I'm going at is that you have all this happening with COVID. Like, it seems like it's starting to get under control, and we've seen, hospitalizations and all these things drop drastically. Even in California, they're opening up. I think they're going down to like 50%. Capacity in restaurants and stuff like that. So California's opening up more. So I mean, I could definitely see that, and we could probably see a surge in real estate at that point of inventory, because as people feel more and more comfortable, those people that were hesitant to sell their home now are going to be more comfortable with selling them. I mean, right now we're buying a house, and the lady that we're buying it from, she's an older lady. She's probably in her 70s.
Are we?
Did a little April Fools on John yesterday, so that was a lot of fun. But yes, we are buying it, and but she, we everything was handled through the phone. We mailed her the contract through email for her to pretty much DocuSign it and do everything, because she doesn't feel comfortable meeting in person. And the reason that she was even selling the house, because she doesn't even live in the house. It was her daughter, and I was able to go look at the house, but if it wasn't for that, she probably wouldn't have let me in her house either. You understand? So, I mean, there's a lot of people like that they're not comfortable with having anybody in their home. They're not comfortable with having anybody walk in their home, especially if they're living in it. So maybe once all these things start opening up, we'll see a spike in inventory.
Or,
So,
I don't know, a spike in inventory, but more inventory.
well, at this point, I think any inventory would be a spike.
Yeah, for
But,
sure. But that is all in retrospect that there isn't a big stock market crash. Oh, like we alluded to at the very beginning, Ray Dalio says there's a bubble that's halfway to the magnitude of 1929 or 2000. And so billionaire investor Ray Dalio, who founded the world's largest hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates, at the age of 26, in a new interview warned that the stock market is a bubble halfway to the magnitude of those that triggered historical market crashes like the dot-com bust and the Great Recession. So for him to come out and say this is no small feat. That you and I saying, oh, it's halfway to there. Like, yeah, we haven't created a $150 billion hedge fund either. He cautioned that some high-performing stocks have benefited from single-minded speculative trading focused on price and price alone, alluding to your stimulus checks going to like your Teslas and your Amazons and things like that have really drove those valuations up the last couple of years or last year. By our measures, the bubble is not what it was in 2000 and not what it was in 1929, he says, but it's kind of like halfway there. Money poured into the markets due to low interest rates, stimulus checks, and expectations that the good times would continue when the economy eventually reopened and the recovery begins. Despite the onset of the pandemic last year, the S&P 500 ended 2020 with a total return of 18%, buoyed by tech giants that benefited from the increased popularity of services like e-commerce and streaming entertainment as COVID-19 shutdowns forced people into their homes. Thoughts? Go. We're waiting.
Yes. Thoughts are formulating, okay? You don't see the little wheel spinning? It's the little loading screen.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, you and I have spoken about this, that we feel like stocks are drastically inflated, right? We have people that are jumping into the stock market that know absolutely nothing about stocks, about the stock market, about any of it, and they're dumping a ton of stupid money behind it, because they just see a stock going up, so why not buy it?
Well, it's
right?
like gambling in a casino to them, where you talk to somebody and they're just like, so why'd you buy it? Oh man, this is where you got to be over here in this thing. Like, I've never even heard of that company. What do they do? Oh, I don't know. So it's like, but the Reddit, that's what you got to follow to find where people to go. That's where you're supposed to be investing. I was like, oh man.
So my thing is, like, herd mentality works both ways. You have that herd mentality that's gotten a lot of people into the market. And I think you're going to have that herd mentality that's going to freak people out and make the market tank. Yeah. So I can definitely see pretty much any form of instability in the market, in the economy, that forces the market to fall any substantial amount could force a lot of people to freak out, and it could be a big ass hit. My thing is, like, how bad can it really be, though? That's my question, is when you have the Federal Reserve pumping in 120 billion or so into the market every month. We just did a 2 trillion stimulus. We're about to do another 2 trillion stimulus now. We dumped close to $8 trillion in the last year alone to date. 6 including this if this new 2 trillion goes through. So you have all this money hitting the market, all this stuff that they're pretty much buying the stock market. How bad could it really get? Like, they'll just prop it right back up. You know what I mean? That's my curiosity. That we talk about a crash and all that, but I don't feel like the free market is really a free market anymore. I feel like if the government needs to, they've been setting up the stage for, don't worry about money printing, don't worry about interest rates, don't worry about unemployment, don't worry about any of those things. We got it. We'll make sure to adjust as necessary. We know what we're doing. The market, this happens, the stock market tanks. It could be maybe a hit for, I don't know, maybe a few months, and then it'll recover again. Like, I just don't. I'm not saying he's wrong, but then just don't think it's gonna be like a Great Depression kind of thing.
The magnitude, because the 29 set up the Great Depression that lasted a decade. The dot-com bubble lasted 3. I think is the Nasdaq. The overall market declined for 3 years in a row from it. So it's like kind of halfway there. But I agree with you. It's like how.
Well, the thing is, like, metrics are always changing. Like,
sure.
They talk about what qualifies as a recession, what qualifies as a depression, and it's everything based on your metrics. And then if you're saying unemployment doesn't matter, money printing doesn't matter, all these things don't matter, then what are going to be the new metrics to determine we are in one? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
to me, when you look at the Great Recession, right? To me, that was more of a depression because that thing lasted quite some time until very recently. Because you look at true unemployment, there was still very high. Underemployment was very high. You had other sectors that were booming, and that's what was taking the attention away and stuff. But there were still a lot of sectors hurting. There's still a lot of people hurting from it. So it's like, what are your metrics for this? So I don't know. I mean, how bad could it be? I guess it's going to depend on how you are affected. If you're somebody that's heavily invested in stocks and you're probably, if you're young, I don't think it matters anyway because you should be investing for the long term. So eventually it will prop
That's one
back
of the things.
up
Like
and it'll keep
it's
going.
a it couldn't kind of scenario. Like it could go down, it could not. Like who knows? And it's like the long term aspect of it. But it's playing the casino gamble of trying to just getting your information from Reddit and not even knowing the company name, just knowing the ticker and
Yeah.
what they do. It's like that's not investing. You're just gambling at that point.
No, nobody is investing anymore. I mean, the majority of the people and the things that all these things are getting done, like it's just gambling. You know what I mean? It's just been gambling. It's speculation. Everybody's hoping it just keeps going higher. They have no knowledge of anything. They're not being smart. They're not allocating their resources and their investments correctly as far as doing a proper allocation of funds. If stocks go down, do you have something a little bit more secure to protect your money, or did you go
Yeah.
100% in stocks?
Well, it's also you got to think of Ray Dalio and like who he represents and who he's talking about being worried. Is like he's a billionaire. He's like worth like 20 billion himself and has a hedge fund worth like 150, 170 billion dollars as well. Like it's family offices. It's big money people that are worth 10, 20, 50, 100 billion dollars that he's saying like you should really be watching out for certain things and divest and reallocate funds to places.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, I think as far as everybody else, it's probably going to be, headline reading and all that for a while. And then it's just, we go back to the same thing. Look at the trends. The government's not letting the economy fall. They don't want to. They've already put all the rules and all the stuff in play where it's like, money printing to infinity and beyond. So it's like,
you like saying that, don't you?
well, what else are you going to say? It's
I don't know,
just
just
money
to
printing.
infinity and beyond.
Well, yeah, because there's no end in sight.
No,
They've
just like
already
that
said like
saying.
there's no
Yeah.
end in sight for it. So what is really the risk? What's really the downside to all of this? I don't know. I mean, I don't see anything. I don't know. I don't see any issues with all that. But I wanted to kind of bring it around to a little bit of local news for economy. And Whataburger thanks its employees with more than $90 million in bonuses. So
Ooh.
the beloved fast food chain announced in a news release Wednesday, it awarded more. They did a news release about how good they do. That shit is funny. On Wednesday, it awarded more than $90 million in bonuses to its employees in thanks for their service during COVID-19 era and in the severe winter weather storm. So for those of you that are not in Texas, Whataburger is the McDonald's of Texas. I know I just pissed off a lot of people. It's a joke, but it's a fast food burger joint here in Texas that is very loved. Whataburger employees also receive extra mile bonuses, emergency pay, and a doubling of their 401k plan matching for 2020.
Oh.
Ed Nelson, Whataburger CEO, stated, we wanted to help ensure that our family members, who are their employees, they call them family members, and their families are taken care of, and thank them for continuing to go the extra mile to serve our guests with great pride, care, and love. The company also announced in its release that it is elevating general managers at its chains with a new title, calling them operating partners. Business leaders who run multi-million-dollar restaurants take care of their teams and serve as the face of Whataburger in their communities per the release. So I'm curious if that new title comes with a pay raise. But that being said, this is what you and I talk about a lot, which is the free market is always going to do what's right. You understand? Are they going to make mistakes? 1,000%. Are they going to try to be greedy? 1,000%. You understand? But at the end, the market is going to do what the market has to do, and it can adapt so much quicker than any federal policy could ever do. So if you leave the market alone, nobody forced Whataburger to do this. You know what I mean? They did it because it's just smart business. It is smart business. They take care of their employees. They make them feel like family. I mean, they don't even call them employees. They call them family members. You know, they're changing the titles from your generic, manager to now a partner. I mean,
they got a better name. They got Musk over called Techno.
They don't have Musk as the CEO having fun with the world.
Operating BA.
Yeah. But you see all this, and that's the point, right? Like you have to let businesses compete, and Whataburger is competing. They're competing by showing how much better they are. So if people loved Whataburger before, this makes them love them even more. If they were debating
take that, McDonald's.
Yeah, if they were debating going to McDonald's versus Whataburger, now they're going to go to Whataburger just to support that. Yeah. Just to be like, you guys are awesome. Let me go support you because you're doing great for the employees.
Well, they also serve burgers on Texas toast. That's the best thing. Can't get that at McDonald's.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a fan of fast food, so they,
I haven't eaten there in years, but I do know what I did. They put it on Texas toast, and it's like, oh.
But delicious. I just think we go back to the same thing. Like when this is why certain incentives are in place. This is why certain things are being done, because it creates that kind of environment. Business make smart decision. Maybe not at first, of course. At first, it's bottom lines, it's profit. But when they see that they can't get the best help, they can't get good customers. They don't have loyalty. They don't have a following. And right now, with a brand, what the brand matters is, can people connect to your brand? If people can connect with your brand, your business grows. And more business owners are realizing this, so they're being more socially conscious with their employees. They're thinking about doing more benefits and all that, which I think this will lead very nicely into the Amazon.
I like Kim's comment here. It's Whataburger. Just wanted to clarify. John's accent makes it sound like Whataburger.
Okay. Well, that's what people call it, Whataburger.
Whataburger, not Whataburger.
Potato. Go ahead.
No, it's a big difference. It's Whataburger. Man, wow, what a burger.
Well, it makes your mouth water.
Oh, that's a good one.
Got him.
There it is. Okay, but on to the next one. Amazon anti-union blitz stalks Alabama warehouse workers everywhere, even the bathroom. And this is actually released by the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon. So kind of an interesting way that they put this out. So some workers in Amazon's Bessemer, Alabama warehouse complained that the company's aggressive performance expectations leave them with little time to take bathroom breaks. The stakes couldn't be higher for Amazon, which is fighting the biggest labor battle in its history on U.S. soil. Next Monday, the National Labor Regulation Board will mail ballots to 5,805 workers at the facility near Birmingham, who will then have 7 weeks to decide whether they want the retail, wholesale, and department store union to represent them. If they vote yes, they would be the first Amazon warehouse in the United States to become unionized. That's what's more, a union victory could spark a wave of organizing campaigns among the 400,000 operations staff at the hundreds of other Amazon warehouse and delivery sites that dot the nation. A battle for higher wages and improved working conditions in the Bessemer and beyond could stall Amazon's growth, forcing the company to negotiate expansive plans with the union. It would probably increase costs and could even hurt efficiencies. The company has steadfastly said its workers don't need the retail, what's the standard? The RWDSU, the Union for Retailers, or any union. It offers Bessemer and workers a starting pay of $15.30 an hour, well above the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Alabama has no state minimum wage. That pay, along with health care, vision, and dental benefits, and a retirement plan, offers employees more than comparable jobs provide. Amazon is one of the nation's largest employers with more than 1.1 million workers worldwide. as U.S. manufacturers has waned, participants, and this is something I thought was interesting of like what the drive behind this is like as U.S. manufacturing has waned, participants in unions has shrunk to about 11% last year, down from 30% highs of the non-agricultural workforce in 1964. So it's one of those, and you read through that article and like the labor unions, oh, we've been fighting for a long time to unionize and control Amazon. It's like these unions are like influencing people because their paychecks depend on being able to unionize people to get them to join, to pay their dues, to argue against them. Because that's one of the things too. Like my brother works for Amazon, my mom works for Amazon. They do give fantastic benefits and fantastic pay. Because you look at like this Bessemer, Alabama. Like Alabama is one of the I think is down there on the economic impact of the United States, where they're offering $15.30 an hour in a tertiary market outside of Birmingham, Alabama. Like there's probably nothing else in that job to the tune that could employ that many people that can pay $15.30 an hour. And now these people are coming out saying we want to be unionized because we want more. And it's one of those. It's like, at what point that do you just be like, this is why these unions like don't work? And like, because now you're going to increase wages, increase efficiency, increase negotiation. And who gets hurt by that? The end consumer, the person that has to pay, because they're going to have to raise costs to help pay for the unions, the dues, where that money's going, and the increased wages and the headache that goes along with that. And that's where it's just like, why, how and why is what's going on in that warehouse in an area that you wouldn't be able to get paid $15.30 an hour anywhere else and get those kind of benefits with a healthcare, vision, dental, 401k matches, retirement plans, everything that they offer. But now you're complaining, you say, I want more. And it's just like, you wouldn't have anything here if we weren't here.
Mm-hmm.
So
my thing is that what union ever worked or works now? You know, I get why they were formed at one point, but you know, this was, I think it was because of Ford.
Yeah, it started with because I mean, when the unions were created, yes, people were like, it's like when you worked for like Ford Motor Company, you're like 16-hour days, 6 days a week, like it was pretty
like
damn
pennies.
bad. Yeah, it's like you were way down there because there wasn't anything. So when they did unionize and come together, it was for a good cause.
Right.
But just like any bureaucracy, like the amount of waste, and because I mean, how many times I remember one of the unions in like Chicago or something, like how much backdoor pocketing he was getting paid for by politicians to let things go through.
Well, for the longest time,
and like, yeah, these unions were being paid, but then behind the scenes are getting paid by the people that they are fighting and representing against.
But for the longest time in New York, Chicago, like the unions were ran by the mob because it was easy money. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you look at stuff like that and it's just like unions, first of all, I mean, I don't think that they make any sense. I don't think they're necessary. And to your point, it's like, look at everything that Amazon's already doing. And all you're doing right now, all you're telling me by trying to do a union is that you just don't want your packages delivered on time. You know, you want to make sure that Amazon becomes as inefficient as possible.
Yeah.
Because there's not a union that I've heard of, and I definitely could be wrong. It doesn't happen, but I could be wrong. That there is a union that runs effectively and does their job correctly. The majority of the time, I mean, since I was a kid, you always made fun of unions because you'll have 5 guys to dig one little hole, right? One guy's digging, the other 4 are watching them. And we always made fun of that and the unions because that's how inefficient they are.
Oh yeah, well, it's like, hey, I need a plumber to fix this real quick. You're a plumber, right? He goes, yeah, but I'm this type of plumber. You need that type. I know how to do it. It's easy, but that's not my job.
Yeah, I can't do that because I'll get in trouble or whatever. In trouble. You can't even get fired from a union. I mean, that's where I'm going is you're continuing to hurt these businesses that we all like. I mean, Amazon isn't a freaking juggernaut because people hate Amazon. You understand? Like, people shop at Amazon consistently. They depend on Amazon for a lot of stuff. So you're doing this is just, to me, it's like, why? You know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to fight? They already went up to $15 an hour in a lot of places.
No, they're company wide lowest starting pay is $15 an hour.
Officially, because I thought it was more of an average. But yeah, I mean, they already went wide. $15 an hour, where there's a ton of other businesses that, you know, they're massive companies and everything that don't do it. They're already doing everything that pretty much the government wanted people to do. And Amazon, much like working at McDonald's, much like working at all these places, they're kind of stepping stone jobs. Like you shouldn't be at Amazon, packing district or whatever the heck that is for the rest of your life. That's kind of like you're there until you can find something better, right? That job should
that's
not
also one of the things, like,
help you
their
retire.
Their benefits are so damn good that it's like, can't find anything better.
And then
it's like, but that's
then
like,
why hurt it?
Yeah,
You
It's
know?
like, then why are you trying to unionize against it? Because it's like you're trying to make it a career job, but it's like, move, get educated, go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I am against unions, a lot of them, and I'm not saying all of them. I'm sure there's probably a few unions that deserve to be there.
Yeah.
But you look at the police. You look at the police. Look at all the issues, inefficiencies with the police departments, right? And they're all, aren't they? Isn't the whole police? They have unions, the police union and all that. At least in New York, you do. I mean, I don't know if it's different in
Well, I know
any
you
other
have
place.
one here. You have the firefighters union, because that was a big issue 2 years ago when we voted against it, and that's the reason, like, the city manager, like, left, is because the union got too powerful and swayed the votes with those propositions and stuff like that like capped city managers' salaries and like the forced arbitration and stuff like that.
Does that have to do with their union? They're capping the city manager's salary
because she attacked the unions, and the union fought back and
Oh,
got the
so
city
it's
to
a
cap their salary and stuff like that. She's like,
payback. Oh, so
no,
it's good
because
that they're
she
still.
held that union accountable, and they didn't like being held accountable.
It's good to see that they're still holding to the mob rule, so that's pretty cool. But I don't know. I'm not in favor of unions. I think and especially with companies like Amazon and stuff like that,
Well,
that
they
they're
need to
already
take
doing an excellent job. That's like, stop it. You
Well,
know
that's
what I
what it's like. I'm curious. Like, should have somehow taken a page out of Walmart's playbook. Like, they've been around for a lot longer than Amazon, and they've been successfully able to not have a union organized in one of their stores.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about, like, they have a department, a group of people that, like, any talk of a union, and they call up the store manager right away, says, "You're no longer in charge of your store. Our team will be there on the ground within 24 hours." And they shut those union talks down so fast for the entire store.
What I find funny is Bezos has tried to bring on every Democratic politician that he possibly could to his team. And it seems like it's like biting him in the ass as he's doing all this, because it's like, just now he was trying to bring on, we talked about it before, what was it? It was like the brother of somebody that's in Biden's cabinet as lobbyist. And then he has one of Obama's also, I don't know, press secretary. I don't know what the hell they were.
Obama's press secretary.
He's under him as well, and I think works very closely with Bezos, because I have an article here.
The Biden singles out Amazon.
Yeah, that Biden, he came out Wednesday talking about Amazon not paying federal taxes during his address in Pittsburgh. And he spoke about raising the burden of taxes on multinational companies and hiking the corporate tax rate. So we talked about the infrastructure plan of them raising the corporate tax rate to 28% and closing loopholes that allow companies to move profits overseas. So we're not tax strategists, attorneys, CPAs, veterinarians. These are just our thing. But I don't know what that loophole really is, but if there is a loophole where people can make money here, export it out of the country to not pay taxes, yeah, that probably should be closed, right? You should, if you're making it in this country, it should stay in this country.
Well, that's their argument right now of like this whole infrastructure plan. It's like, instead of raising corporate taxes, how about we close corporate loopholes? Like, if that has the same effect, and it's like, yeah, I agree with that. It's like, why punish everybody versus, hey, let's go after and punish the bad people that are avoiding tax loopholes or moving profits offshores.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So, and then Biden said Amazon was one of 91 Fortune 500 companies that use various loopholes where they pay not a single solitary penny in federal income tax, in their sharp contrast to middle-class families paying over 20% tax rates. In response, the Amazon spokeswoman pointed to tweet on research and development tax credits by Jay Carney. Oh, that's the guy. So Jay Carney, the company's public policy and communication chief and a former White House press secretary under Obama. He tweeted, "If the R&D tax credit is a loophole, it's certainly one Congress strongly intended. The R&D tax credit has existed since 1981, was extended 15 times with bipartisan support, and was made permanent in 2015 in a law signed by President Obama." 2015. Oh, Trump went in 2016. Okay. My years got a little confused. Kind of been on a hybrid drive with the years going by. After paying zero in federal taxes for 2 years, Amazon started paying federal income tax in 2019. This is not the first time Biden has gone after Amazon. In June 2019, he named Amazon and said no company making billions in profit should pay a lower tax rate than a firefighter and teachers. So here's, and I get politicians. I understand sales tactics and all of this. That last line pissed me off because it's like there's no reason a company that's providing the jobs, the services, everything the freaking world wants,
million jobs,
everything the world wants, should be making billions of dollars and paying less taxes than a firefighter and teachers. It's like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Why don't you help or do something to help the firefighters and the teachers if that's the problem? Why are you punishing the company that's moving the economy? Like, if your big issue is that firefighters and teachers are paying too much, help them out. Give them a break. You know what I mean?
That makes government smart. I don't want to do that.
That's the stuff that I just find, and I get it. Like, I get what they're trying, what his point is and all of this. But that's my argument is that, why use that as a political ploy when it's like, if you're really worried about firefighters and teachers and everybody, then lower their taxes. I wouldn't be offended if you were a firefighter, a police officer, a teacher, and you got tax breaks. I'm not mad at that. By all means, have at it. You understand? The job that you do is very important. Yes, teachers usually suck, most of them. They're terrible at their job, but it's still a shitty job. I mean, being a teacher for a lot of dealing with some of the students and everything.
Not being a shitty job. It's a tough job. Some people do enjoy being a teacher and stuff like that.
Okay, I use more descriptive words. I'm sorry.
It can be a very tough and demanding job.
Exactly. That's what I mean. And thank you for defining my word shitty. So that's what the word shitty means in the John Dictionary.
I know what you're trying to say, but that's not the word you put out.
Yeah, but that's my point, though. It's like it's to your point. It's being a firefighter, being a police officer, being a teacher. They're very tough jobs. It's very high stress, and they're not very well compensated jobs. So if you're gonna give those people tax breaks and stuff like that, I'm all for it. I'm not against that. You understand? Go for it. I don't care. My thing is like, but why are you punishing or trying to punish a company if they're not paying taxes because they're doing what the tax law says? Where if you provide jobs, you get benefits. If you provide services, you get benefits.
Everyone it's who's Tom Wheelwright, CPA for Rich Dad.
Tom Wheelwright, yeah,
where he talks about the tax code is not meant to punish. It's a book of incentives. That's what it is. It's like you get taxed by doing things that the government wants you to do, like providing jobs. You get a tax break for doing R&D. That's why it's been renewed 15 times and made permanent in 2015.
But I can definitely see how a company the size of Amazon can exploit that R&D and say, oh, this is R&D. That is R&D. This is R&D, right? I can see that. So it's
we're testing this new theory of paying all of our people more money or spending money on like these new fancy lights as R&D to see lights get better production.
Yeah, and they do like everything else. They send the money overseas, and a fraction of it actually goes towards that.
Well, and that's one thing. It is Amazon, and I do agree with them. It's like Amazon, all the businesses they're in, from streaming to cloud services to the product delivery to the cars, the technology, the aerospace stuff they're doing, like, for them not to pay any money in taxes and stuff like that, it's like, okay, that's too many things that you're doing that you're somehow able to still pay zero in taxes. Like, something doesn't seem right in that, to where like there's a lot of things going on to where like
Right.
usually when you get bigger and bigger, the complexity just gets, not just, if you double in size,
sure.
it doesn't get double complex. It's
Oh,
3,
and
4 times
I'm sure that
exponentially more complex.
they have a building, this, you know, a massive building with just freaking attorneys and CPAs to make sure that they're being as efficient or finding loopholes like this so they can avoid as much in taxes. And I get that. And it's like, well, you,
And
the
I
government, you
also
have,
don't blame Amazon either. It's like
No.
it's their job to make as much money as possible. They're a publicly traded
Yeah.
company, and their responsibility is to their shareholders.
And like I said,
to their shareholders, they need to raise the prices.
I'm for closing loopholes and stuff like that are just, you're taking advantage of.
Yeah.
But at the same time, trying to use the firefighters and teachers as an excuse, like that to me was upsetting, because it's like, look, if you really cared, then help them out.
Yeah.
Don't use that
It's
as
politics.
an excuse.
It's pandering, for sure.
But as we're getting close to our second hour, I did want to make sure that we cover this question real quick. So I did get a question on somebody sent it to me on Bigger Pockets, and I'm gonna read it out to you. And then she's asking for advice, so I figured let's give her advice here, because I was getting ready to type a response, and I was like, ugh, this response is gonna be long as shit, and I hate typing. So I was like, well, let's put it on the show. So she says, all right, came across one of your posts on Bigger Pockets San Antonio and see that you invest there. I'm looking to invest in my first out-of-state deal to start building my rental portfolio. As you know, the first one is always daunting, especially being out of state. There is so much information, not to mention the world is unpredictable right now, with the foreclosure moratoriums being extended, rates rising, and low inventory driving up competition and prices. I don't know if now is a good time to buy, but I do like San Antonio's numbers and growth. I'm trying to narrow down to SA or DFW areas. I added my criteria below in hope that you have sage advice or any reputable connections you would connect me with. Okay, so let's get ready for the sage advice. I don't know. I don't know if we're bringing somebody in for that one for sage advice. You're going to get advice from us. I don't know if it's sage.
So she's just wanting advice on how to go about investing out of state.
Yeah,
wherever she's at.
Right. And then, so here's her criteria. She wants buy and hold, single family or duplex, built 1980 or newer if possible. Again, she puts, again, if I have to go older and do minor rehab, I'm open. Not opposed to new construction. Price range between 150 and 200. 20 to 25% down financing. Rent ready or very little rehab or new construction. Area where rents are competitive, at least 1%. This is where I can't seem to find much. So I'm guessing what she does mean by 1% is that 1% rule of if you rent the house for
under it's worth 150.
Exactly. So I'm guessing that's kind of where she's targeting. True B+ class neighborhood. I don't know neighborhoods very well. Cash flow, looking for as much as we can get, but 200 minimum. This is net after money is taken out for vacancies, maintenance, property management, etc. What advice do we have for her?
Lower your cash flow. Lower your rent ratio requirement. And you might be able to find something.
Well, I mean, and then also,
I mean, you're talking. She wants like at least 400 in cash flow, 450 in like gross cash flow from something, and it's like you're not gonna find that here right now. And or she can find that, but you got to lower your B class down to C and D class, and then you're gonna lower your year built. It's like you can't have all of those effects buying from afar, trying to go through the MLS. Like we can find that stuff, but we're in it every single day. And we're searching for that stuff every single day, to where we might find that opportunity once or twice a year when we do it 365 days a year. So that my advice to that is you're going to have to lower your expectations of what you're going to get. And for where you're at, I would lower your cash flow and lower your rent ratio, because going the other direction to get those ratios, you're going to drive yourself down into lower class housing, which is going to be a nightmare for your first out of state property.
And you can be at a 1% if you're looking at a ratio of how much you're in it for versus what the rents are.
After you put your 25% down.
Exactly. But you got to keep in mind that you're going to leave money on the table. You got to leave money in the property, and that might give you the amount of cash flow that you need. And that's still going to depend
you
on.
You still wouldn't have 200 cash flow.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's still going to depend on what your ratios are for vacancy, for maintenance, and what your cost actually is for property management. So, because I've seen vacancy ratios all over the place. I've seen people put like 3% vacancy, people go up to 10% for vacancy. So it's up to your risk management. Then your maintenance, same thing, which is some people call it your CapEx. I've seen the same thing. I've seen it go from like as low as 3 to 5% all the way up to 10%.
Right, so or another option to that is like, you're not going to invest in a major metro in Texas.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go to Midwest. You're going to have to go somewhere like Cincinnati, Ohio, or some of these other places that don't have the appreciation but better cash flow. Or if that's what you're wanting.
Or
to
you
go.
gotta invest more on like go more into the outer skirts of San Antonio. So you have areas that are further out, kind of like the area that I went to look at a house yesterday. And I mean, the house I went to look at is 2,300 square feet, built in 94, and it's worth 190 ARV. You know what I mean? It was out by Converse. It's 190 ARV, 2,300 square feet. And it needed some work. I mean, those houses out there got smacked by hail. I mean, you should have seen it look like a freaking drive-by. My God.
Oh, dude, yeah, I remember seeing some of those out there.
Insane. But so it needed siding, it needed some stuff. But you're looking at a property like that, you know, so in those areas, a house that's probably 1,500 square feet, the ARV probably is about that 150, 160. You probably get a decent house. And the rents for this one, it was 2,300 square feet. The rents were 1,600, 1,650. Right? So you can get a house like that. You can put a good amount of down payment in. You know, the ARV, like I said, was 190, 200. So you put a down payment in. Rents are your 1,600, 1,650. Yeah. I mean, you be around there. It's just, it's going to depend what.
I'm thinking of that property I have out in Converse. Look, that is probably worth $1.5, renting for 1,400, 1,250 square foot house. But that's the thing is like, you still have to eliminate that 1% rule aspect and change it to 1% of whatever your loan balance is. Because if you put
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
If you put 20, 25% down on 160, 32, you're at 128 and it's for 1,400. It's like, oh, so now you have over a 1%. So you're close to it. But the problem with those things come on the market.
That's like that was my next point.
The inventory is gone
right now. With inventory being as tight as it is, it's what you're competing with the retail market.
Yeah,
I mean, and the retail market is hunting.
Even then, it's just those numbers still don't work for you because you're wanting $200 net cash flow. Because like if you do that and rent for 1,400, you're probably cash flowing 350, maybe 400. Property manager is going to take 140 of that at minimum. So even at 1,450, that takes you down to what's that? 310. Now you got to factor in vacancies and CapEx, which is usually 10%. And there's another $140 a month down to where like you're already under $200 a month. Or it's just like you're going to have to get that $200 net cash flow thing out of your mind. It's like it's like if you're getting like 50 to 100, like that's probably a little more realistic. And you're still going to be pressed to find those that
50 to 100
dollar net cash flow.
Oh, okay.
After, so now you're talking, you could probably rent for 350 or 350 gross cash flow.
Yeah.
And like, now that's starting to get a little more realistic, but there's things that you can do personally to realize that like, hey, I quote unquote break even every month on this, and then just save all that cash flow, and then you yourself have additional cash reserves.
Yeah.
That if something goes wrong, you can put something in. And if you can't, you shouldn't be buying real estate.
Well,
anyways.
It's what we talk about a lot with vacancy. You know, putting money aside for vacancy and putting money aside for maintenance and all that. Is that at some point you will have enough money put aside that you're good. You understand? Like, you don't need to keep drawing that every single month, because it'll get to a point where you have enough money that you can pretty much take care of anything. And this is why we said that even though buy and hold are considered passive investing, it's not passive.
Yeah.
You're an active investor. You got to be paying attention. You got to be involved in the market. And if you're involved in the market and you're paying attention, I mean, vacancies, not really an issue right now. Houses are being rented the same day.
I mean, yeah, we rented one in 6 hours.
Exactly. Maintenance, I mean, if you bought right and you did a proper inspection, you shouldn't have much maintenance happening, if any, for quite some time. You understand? So there's a lot of things that you can adjust for, but I understand investing from out of state is difficult. And I did do an interview with Justin Monk, and he's an investor out of Utah, and he does buy and hold investing in Ohio. So, Michelle, I really recommend that you check out that interview. He gave some great tips on forming a team and how to form a team that can help you hit all of the areas that you need to hit to make sure you're getting into something that makes sense. That being said, it's a very competitive market. DFW is even worse. So
Austin, get it.
No, yeah.
Well,
there was an article I was going to read, but then I didn't because it was on the San Antonio Business Journal, and they only give you like 2 lines, and I was like, I'm not buying that crap. But they were saying how Austin Business Journal.
Oh, I was gonna say.
And but the pretty much the topic is that they're saying that the Austin real estate market is in a bubble. And it's like, just now, I think it's been in a bubble and it's still going up.
Yeah. Well, they're just a very tech dependent city.
Yeah, but going back to your question, Michelle, I think it's gonna be difficult. Texas, the benefit that you have here that we see why we invest in Texas, why we invest in San Antonio, is we see the potential for appreciation to be tremendous. San Antonio has a very, very, very good infrastructure that allows for a lot more growth that we haven't even begun to tap into. We're a very affordable city for people to move to. So you might get a house that maybe, and this even hurts me to say because it goes against a lot of the stuff that we learned, but this is why you got to be an involved, educated investor. But you're going to get houses that maybe you're leaving, 20, 25% in the property, and maybe you are not cash flowing a tremendous amount where you're still walking away with cash flow, but you are collecting the rent and then some to protect yourself. And what you're doing is you're putting chips on the table. You're holding on because these houses, right now it's barely cash flowing. Next year, it'll be cash flowing. You know what I mean? And it went out probably 10% in value already. And you wait a little bit more and you might be able to refinance some of that equity that you left in there. There's going to be plays, but right now it's going to be more of it's not going to be as beneficial, as nice as you would think it is right now, because especially if you're coming from California and other.
Read a lot of these books written like 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
They all talk about these like pie in the sky, like I want to be able to move into a duplex and have the other side pay my mortgage in house hack. Yeah. I haven't heard that in a while because I think people finally realize like, okay, that's kind of impossible to do right now.
Well, no, because Bigger Pockets is still pushing it.
Yeah.
So that's I think because she sent me this through Bigger Pockets, and that's where I think a lot of the issue is that you have Bigger Pockets still pushing a lot of this shit, right? Because I don't know.
It's the sexiness of the sell. Like, oh,
yeah,
that makes so much sense. I can get into real estate, buying a house with an FHA loan, putting no money down, and have the other side pay my mortgage in full. That's fantastic. Well, it's also Texas. It's a little hard to do because our property taxes are so high.
You got to look at it. You got to look at it. Are there areas in the country where this makes sense at, right? Like Justin Monk is doing it in Cleveland, Ohio. I wouldn't not ever think to invest in Cleveland, but he's doing very well for himself. So it's like, okay, and he's buying houses and cash flowing, and he's definitely well within that 1% that she's talking about. He's doing very well for himself. So it's like, all right, but you got to look at the market. Is it appreciating? Is that kind of where you're going to be? It's just going to be a safe cash flowing rental. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. But as far as your question about investing, I do think San Antonio is much better than DFW. But that being said, it's still a very competitive market. So I hope that helped answer your question. Definitely message me back if you have any further questions or anything that you want us to elaborate on. But that's kind of our 2 cents and our sage advice to your questions. So I hope that helps. With that being said, we are. Oh wait. So I started a new segment on our board. I call it the WTF segment.
What's that mean?
WTF? You see?
What the frick?
What the freak?
What the Fred?
So Whataburger, then fries. So anyway.
Oh my God! I just read that article. the
So-
title of it. Wow.
Yeah. So the title is, "Could this 3D housing company solve homelessness by building houses in space?" So Icon, here's where it's gonna make some sense. Icon, the Austin-based 3D printed
okay.
home company. So it's
Makes sense.
Austin-based.
Yeah.
Now
Keep
it makes
it weird.
sense. Yeah. Sees the future of solving this problem in space. That's right. This article gets worse, though. That's right. The company is on its way to creating housing on Mars and the moon with the assistance of NASA. I think the kind of civilization that learns to explore outer space and to live in outer space will be the civilization that can solve homelessness. Sorry, they're gonna fucking shuttle homeless people to Mars now. Get the fuck out of the planet. Oh man.
Oh my
And
God! That sounds so terrible. The way
So
that-
it is. And no, this isn't just a pipe dream. In fact, Icon has already begun experiments that involve melting down simulated moon dust to use in its cement mixtures. Tests that were completed in NASA's lab, says Ballard. My thing is like, who the fuck is funding this? Icon has long been at the forefront of housing design. Back in 2018, the company made the first fully permitted 3D house and followed up early this month with the release of its first series of 4 3D homes, all of which were listed for sale in Austin. In 2019, the company collaborated with Industry West on a community of houses printed in just 27 hours, made for Austin's homeless. It also partnered with nonprofit New Story to build communities in Mexico and Haiti. By bypassing the need for architect, increasing the speed of production, and using cement, a notoriously cheap and durable substance, Icon can create structures at a fraction of the cost of competitive houses. The most direct thing we are doing to cut costs with 3D automation is we are replacing materials and labor, Ballard tells Fast Company. Once you put forth the capital costs for the robot, the labor after that is free. That I'm surprised to hear somebody from Austin talk about, hurting the labor market, because that's so capitalistic of them.
My thought is like, living in space isn't easy. From the movies I've seen, it's like,
Just from the movies?
yeah, just from the movies I've seen, it's like, it's not like I can just walk around on the moon, just like, I'm gonna go for a leisurely stroll and just walk out my door.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of
I
have to
haven't
have
walked this crater before.
because there's this thing that we all have to have in order to breathe called oxygen that doesn't exist on the moon. To where like.
Well, I mean, we're already learning to live with masks. What's a mask that pumps oxygen? I mean,
I guess it's just like we're
No
just gonna
COVID
build
on the moon.
a giant atmosphere up there that has like I don't know. Like let's take the homeless, which don't obviously they're homeless. They can't fend for themselves to get a home. But now
My
we're
thing
going
is,
to
like,
put
you're-
them on the moon.
you're saying you want to solve homelessness, you want to do all this.
I love the
Why don't
the
you
cause,
solve it on
but-
this planet?
Yeah, it's like, I
Like,
love the cause, but like
You're already trying to create a
put it on the moon?
civilization in the moon and in Mars.
yeah.
By the time any of this even begins to being close to happening, I mean, what are we talking about? How long and how much wasted time where it's like, if you can really print 3D houses for that much cheaper and that quick, I mean,
There's a house for all of them here. Like why are we
as
trying to
far
do it
as
on the moon?
profitability goes, you're profitable as shit. You know what I mean? And then if you're subsidizing homelessness, I'm sure the government will give you plenty of grants. I mean, they've damn near funded all of Tesla's growth. So I'm sure if you can get some government land or something on the outskirts of a city, get a few, 100 acres and freaking 3D print
Yeah,
couple
there you go.
houses. I mean, you can build the whole community there. And homelessness, like, why are you doing all of this stuff in NASA and everything? I mean, don't get me wrong. I agree that it's probably fun as hell to do, but it's just, I don't know. It's, yeah. And Randy puts shoot homeless into space? Question mark. That's exactly. I'm like, what are you doing? You're gonna shuttle the homeless people into the moon? It's like, oh, you need oxygen? Oops. We'll get that the next round. Bye.
I don't know.
But all right. Well, with that being said, guys, that's it for today. This weekend we are releasing the Texas. So we're gonna be doing this every quarter. So for the first quarter of 2021, we're releasing the Texas real estate market update. We did one back in December, January. So now this one's coming out this Sunday. So if you haven't signed up already, Kim has already put the link in the chat, and it's going to be in the description. Go to sarealestatemarket.com, sarealestatemarket.com, and sign up to get the slides, get the zip codes, get everything. You're going to get all the information from there. And also make sure to check out our Facebook group. Again, this is a private Facebook group. It's purely for education, no deal pitching, no hard money lenders, none of that crap. It's if you have questions or if you have knowledge that you can contribute to the community to help the community, you are more than welcome to join the group. So make sure to answer the questions, because if not, you won't be let in. And with that being said, guys, thank you for watching, and we will catch you next week.
Bye-bye.